There are moments in life when a single mistake changes everything. For Emily Carter, that moment happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. She had no idea that one wrong suitcase would drag her into a mystery involving missing people, stolen money, and secrets powerful enough to get someone killed. But before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this are inspired by real-life possibilities, and you won't want to miss the next one. Now, let's begin. Emily had spent 3 exhausting days in Seattle attending a business conference. At 29 years old, she worked as a project manager for a software company and rarely took time off. The conference had been packed with meetings, presentations, and endless networking events. By the time she landed in Chicago, all she wanted was a hot shower and her own bed. The baggage claim area was crowded. Dozens of travelers stood around the moving carousel, staring at their phones while occasionally glancing up at the luggage passing by. Emily spotted her suitcase almost immediately. Or at least she thought she did. It was a black hard-shell suitcase with a silver handle and a small blue ribbon tied near the top. Exactly like hers. She grabbed it, rolled it toward the exit, and headed home. The mistake seemed insignificant at first. An hour later, Emily unlocked the door to her apartment and dragged the suitcase into her bedroom. She dropped her keys on the dresser and unzipped the luggage. Then she froze. The contents inside were not hers. Instead of clothes and conference materials, she found stacks of neatly bundled cash. Her heart skipped a beat. Emily stared at the money for several seconds, convinced she was imagining things. Slowly, she reached inside. The bundles felt real, very real. There had to be tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more. Beneath the cash sat a small envelope. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside was a photograph of a young woman standing beside a lake. On the back, someone had written, "Trust nobody. They're watching." Emily's stomach tightened. The room suddenly felt colder. This wasn't some wealthy traveler's forgotten savings. Something was wrong. Very wrong. She immediately searched for a luggage tag. None. No identification, no business cards, nothing. Only the money, the photograph, and a strange brass key hidden beneath a false compartment. For a few moments, she considered calling airport security. That was the sensible thing to do. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. Emily hesitated before answering. Hello? Silence. She frowned. Hello? A man's voice finally spoke. Do not tell anyone you have that suitcase. The call disconnected. Emily nearly dropped the phone. Her pulse raced. How could someone know she had the suitcase? She looked around her apartment as if expecting someone to be standing there. The rational part of her mind told her there had to be an explanation. Maybe the rightful owner had tracked her somehow? Maybe airport cameras had identified her. But deep down, she knew something didn't add up. She called the number back. No answer. 5 minutes later, she tried again. Still nothing. That night, sleep was impossible. She kept thinking about the money, the photograph, the warning, and the mysterious caller. At 2 a.m, she finally decided to contact Airport Lost and Found Services first thing the next day. Whatever this situation was, she wanted no part of it. Morning arrived with gray skies and steady rain. Emily left her apartment carrying the suitcase. She planned to drive directly to the airport, But as she stepped outside her building, she noticed a black SUV parked across the street. The driver appeared to be watching her. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she was paranoid. Still, she felt uneasy. The SUV remained there as she loaded the suitcase into her car. Only when she pulled away did it begin moving as well, following her. Emily's hands tightened around the steering wheel. 3 turns later, the SUV was still behind her. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She quickly entered a crowded shopping center parking lot. The SUV continued past without stopping. She let out a shaky breath. Maybe it wasn't following her after all. But the feeling of being watched remained. When she finally reached the airport, another surprise awaited her. The Lost and Found office had no report of a missing suitcase matching the one she carried. No inquiries, no complaints, nothing. That made no sense. Anyone missing this much cash would have reported it immediately, unless they couldn't or didn't want to. As Emily left the office, she noticed a man standing near the terminal entrance. He wore a dark jacket and sunglasses, despite the cloudy weather. The moment he saw her, he turned away. She felt a chill. Perhaps she was imagining things. Yet every instinct told her she was in danger. Back at her apartment, she carefully examined the suitcase again. This time, she focused on the brass key. It looked old, antique even. Tiny numbers had been engraved along one side. That was all. A key, a number, and a photograph. The only clues she had. Hours later, while studying the photograph under a bright desk lamp, Emily noticed something she had missed before. A reflection in the water behind the woman. A building. A distinctive red brick structure with a clock tower. It seemed familiar. Very familiar. After searching online for nearly an hour, she found a match. A lakeside hotel in northern Wisconsin. The same clock tower. The same shoreline. The exact same building. Why would someone hide a photograph of that location inside a suitcase full of money? And what did the key open? At that moment, another message appeared on her phone. Unknown sender. No number attached. Just 6 words. They know where you live now. Emily felt her blood run cold. Someone was watching her. And whoever they were, they clearly wanted something inside that suitcase. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. The deeper Emily digs into this mystery, the more dangerous it becomes. Because what she doesn't know yet is that the woman in the photograph disappeared 3 years ago. And according to police records, she's officially dead. Emily stared at her phone. The message remained on the screen. They know where you live now. Her hands trembled. For several seconds, she simply sat there, staring at the words. Who was sending these messages? And how did they know she had the suitcase? Most importantly, who was they? The rain outside grew heavier, tapping against her apartment windows like impatient fingers. For the first time since this nightmare had begun, Emily considered calling the police. But what exactly would she tell them? That she accidentally took the wrong suitcase? That she found money inside? That anonymous strangers were sending her warnings? Without evidence, it would sound ridiculous. Still, she knew she couldn't ignore what was happening. The next morning, Emily drove to the local police station. She didn't mention the money. Instead, she asked about the woman in the photograph. The officer at the front desk listened carefully. After a few minutes of searching through public records, he found a match. The woman's name was Sarah Mitchell, 26 years old, declared dead 3 years earlier. Cause of death: drowning. Location: Lake Evergreen, Wisconsin. The same lake visible in the photograph. Emily's stomach tightened. "Was there any investigation?" she asked. The officer nodded. "Of course, but there wasn't much evidence. Witnesses said she fell from a boat during a storm." "Was the body recovered?" The officer hesitated. No. Emily felt a chill spread through her body. No body. Yet Sarah had still been declared dead. Something about that felt wrong. Very wrong. As she left the station, she noticed something that made her stop walking. The same man with sunglasses, standing across the street, watching her. The moment their eyes met, he turned and disappeared into a crowd. Emily's heart pounded. This wasn't paranoia anymore. Someone was definitely following her. That evening, she returned home and studied the brass key once again. 1? The number had to mean something. Room 317? Locker 317? Apartment 317? She opened her laptop and searched for information about the Lakeside Hotel from the photograph. The Evergreen Grand Hotel. Built in 1928. Still operating. And, according to its website, there was a room 317. Emily leaned back in her chair. It couldn't be that simple, could it? The next day, she made a decision that would change everything. She booked a room at the hotel. If answers existed, she was going to find them. 3 days later, Emily arrived in Wisconsin. The hotel looked exactly like the photograph. Red brick walls, clock tower, beautiful lake stretching beyond the property. Tourists wandered through the lobby, laughing and carrying luggage. Everything appeared perfectly normal. But Emily knew better. She checked in and headed toward the 3rd floor. Room 317 stood at the end of a long hallway. Her pulse quickened. The brass key fit perfectly. The lock clicked. Emily slowly opened the door. The room was empty. No furniture, no decorations. Nothing. The hotel had apparently stopped using it years ago. Disappointment washed over her. Then she noticed scratches on the wooden floor, near one wall. Someone had moved something heavy recently. Kneeling down, she examined the area more closely. There, a small metal ring hidden beneath old carpeting. Emily pulled. A concealed hatch opened. Beneath it lay a narrow storage compartment. Inside was a waterproof metal box. Her breath caught. This was what the key had been protecting. With trembling fingers, she opened the box. Inside were several flash drives, a notebook, and dozens of documents. The first page changed everything. Sarah Mitchell had not drowned. She had been investigating a money laundering operation involving millions of dollars. The notebook detailed secret transactions, shell companies, and names of powerful individuals. Some names belonged to business executives. Others belonged to politicians. And several belonged to law enforcement officials. Emily suddenly understood. The money in the suitcase wasn't random. It was evidence. Evidence someone desperately wanted back. A loud sound echoed from the hallway. Footsteps. Several sets. Approaching quickly. Emily's blood turned to ice. Someone was coming. She shoved the documents into her backpack and quietly moved toward the door. The footsteps stopped outside. Then came a knock. 3 slow knocks. Silence. Another knock. Harder this time. Emily held her breath. A man's voice spoke. "We know you're in there." Fear surged through her body. The doorknob began turning. Whoever stood outside had a master key. Emily's eyes darted around the room. There was no escape except the window. She rushed toward it. The room overlooked a maintenance roof only a few feet below. Not safe, but better than staying. The lock clicked behind her. The door was opening. Without thinking, Emily climbed through the window and jumped. She landed hard on the roof. Pain shot through her ankle, but she kept moving. Voices erupted behind her. Someone had spotted her. "She's there!" Emily ran. Rain soaked the rooftop. Her shoes slipped repeatedly. Yet somehow, she reached a fire escape. She descended as fast as she could. By the time the men reached the roof, she had disappeared into the darkness surrounding the hotel. For nearly an hour, she hid among trees near the lake. Her breathing slowly returned to normal. The backpack remained strapped to her shoulders. The evidence was safe. For now. As night fell, Emily opened the notebook again. One page contained a final handwritten message. Different handwriting. Sarah's handwriting. It read, "If you're reading this, they probably think I'm dead. That's exactly what I wanted. Trust no one except Daniel Harper." Daniel Harper. The name appeared nowhere else. No explanation. No address. Nothing. Just a name. Emily spent the next morning searching online. Eventually, she found him. Daniel Harper, former investigative journalist, now retired, living less than 30 miles away. By noon, Emily was standing outside a small cabin deep in the woods. She knocked. An older man opened the door. The moment he saw Sarah's notebook, his face turned pale. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. Emily explained everything. The suitcase, the money, the messages, the men following her. Daniel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he sighed heavily. "I was afraid this day would come." "You knew Sarah?" Daniel nodded. "She wasn't just a journalist. She was my partner." Emily stared at him. "Partner?" "We investigated corruption together." His expression darkened. Sarah discovered a network laundering money through charities, businesses, and political organizations. Billions of dollars moved through it over the years. Emily sat silently. Daniel continued. "When Sarah got too close to the truth, they tried to kill her." Emily froze. "Tried?" Daniel slowly smiled, a tired smile. "Sarah Mitchell isn't dead." For several seconds, Emily couldn't process what she had. What? The drowning was staged. Emily's eyes widened. Daniel nodded. It was the only way to keep her alive. 1,000 questions flooded her mind. If Sarah was alive, Then where had she been all these years? And why had someone placed the suitcase in circulation now? Daniel reached into a drawer and removed an envelope. Inside was a recent photograph. Emily immediately recognized the woman. Sarah. Older, but unmistakably alive. Before Emily could speak, a loud engine roared outside. Daniel's face changed instantly. He moved to the window, then cursed under his breath. Several black SUVs were pulling into the driveway, the same vehicles Emily had seen before. They had found them. Daniel turned toward her. They know about the suitcase. What do we do? Daniel grabbed a phone and handed her a flash drive. The evidence has to reach the media. The sound of car doors slamming echoed outside. Men were approaching the cabin. Fast. Daniel looked directly at Emily. If they get that flash drive, everything Sarah risked her life for disappears forever. Heavy footsteps thundered onto the porch. Someone pounded on the front door. Emily's heart raced because she suddenly realized something terrifying. The people outside weren't just trying to recover stolen money. They were trying to erase the truth, and they were willing to kill anyone who stood in their way. To be continued. The pounding on the cabin door grew louder. Daniel grabbed a backpack and shoved several folders inside. "They're not here for the money," he said. "They're here for the evidence." Another crash shook the cabin. The front door wouldn't hold much longer. Emily's heart raced. How did they find us? Daniel's face darkened. They have people everywhere. A third blow shattered part of the doorframe. Without another word, Daniel led Emily through the back of the cabin and into the forest. Rain poured from the sky as they ran between the trees. Behind them came shouting. Flashlights appeared in the darkness. The hunt had begun. For nearly 2 hours, they moved through the woods before reaching an abandoned ranger station. There, Daniel finally stopped. Both of them were soaked and exhausted. Emily handed him the flash drive. "What exactly is on this thing?" Daniel looked at her for a long moment. "Everything." "What does that mean?" "It means names, bank accounts, transactions, evidence connecting politicians, business leaders, and law enforcement officials." Emily sat down heavily. So if this reaches the public, the entire organization collapses. Silence filled the room. Then Daniel said something unexpected. "There's something else you need to know." Emily frowned. "What?" "The suitcase didn't end up with you by accident." The words hit her like a punch. "What are you talking about?" Daniel opened one of the folders. Inside was a photograph. Emily stared. The picture showed her, taken weeks earlier outside her office building. "What is this?" Daniel slid several more photographs across the table. Each one showed Emily. At work. At a coffee shop. Walking home. Months of surveillance. Her stomach dropped. Why was I being followed? Daniel sighed. Because Sarah chose you. Emily froze. What? Sarah spent years searching for someone she could trust, someone with access to the company she was investigating. Emily felt her pulse quicken. My company? Daniel nodded. Your employer wasn't just connected to the scheme. He paused. It was one of the central hubs. The room suddenly felt smaller. Impossible. Emily had worked there for 6 years. The company developed financial software used by banks. Nothing more. Or so she thought. Daniel opened another file. This time, he showed her documents bearing her company's logo. Beside them were records of illegal transactions worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Emily felt sick. All this time, she had unknowingly been helping maintain systems used to hide criminal activity. Sarah discovered everything before she disappeared, Daniel said. She needed someone on the inside. Why me? Because she watched you. Emily stared at him. She learned about your reputation. She knew you reported misconduct. She knew you couldn't be bought. The realization hit hard. The wrong suitcase had never been a mistake. Sarah had arranged it. Every step, every clue, every message. Someone at the airport had intentionally switched the luggage. The entire chain of events had been planned. Before Emily could respond, a phone buzzed. Daniel looked at the screen. Then smiled. For the first time. She's ready. Emily's eyes widened. Sarah? Daniel nodded. An hour later, they arrived at a small warehouse near Milwaukee. Inside stood a woman. Older than the photograph. A few scars visible on her face, but unmistakably Sarah Mitchell. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. Finally, Sarah smiled. Sorry about the suitcase. Despite everything, Emily laughed. The tension broke instantly. Sarah explained what had happened. 3 years earlier, she had uncovered evidence that threatened powerful people. When they learned she was investigating them, they arranged her murder. Fortunately, Daniel discovered the plan. Together, they staged her death. Since then, Sarah had been hiding while gathering additional evidence. But recently, someone inside the organization discovered she was still alive. Time had run out. The evidence had to be released immediately. That night, they uploaded copies of every document to multiple journalists, independent media outlets, and international watchdog organizations. Then, they waited. Morning came. Nothing happened. No headlines, no breaking news, no scandals. Nothing. Emily stared at the television in disbelief. Every major network remained silent. Hours passed. Still, nothing. Fear slowly replaced hope. Maybe the organization was too powerful. Maybe they had stopped the story. By evening, Sarah looked defeated. Daniel remained silent, and Emily felt like everything had been for nothing. Then her phone rang. A number from her office. It was her supervisor. Emily, where are you? She hesitated. Why? We need you in the office immediately. Something about his voice felt wrong. Very wrong. She ended the call. Moments later, an email arrived. Then another. Then another. Dozens. Employees from her company were suddenly resigning. Executives were disappearing. Servers were being shut down. Chaos. Confusion. Panic. And then came the headline. One small independent newspaper published the story. Within an hour, hundreds of websites copied it. Then, thousands. The information spread too quickly to contain. By midnight, It dominated every news channel in the country. Arrests began before sunrise. Executives, lawyers, politicians, bankers, people nobody thought were untouchable. The organization was collapsing. Emily finally allowed herself to breathe. It was over. Or so she thought. The next morning, federal investigators arrived at her company's headquarters. Television cameras surrounded the building. Employees stood outside in shock. As reporters listed the names of those involved, Emily suddenly noticed one she had somehow missed. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't a politician. It wasn't a CEO. It wasn't even someone from another company. It was her boss, the man who had mentored her for 6 years, the man who had promoted her, the man she trusted completely. He had been one of the leaders of the entire operation. Emily felt physically ill. All those years, all those meetings, all those projects, she had been helping build the very systems that enabled the crimes, without ever knowing it. Tears filled her eyes. Sarah placed a hand on her shoulder. "This wasn't your fault." Emily nodded slowly. Maybe not, but the truth still hurt. Weeks later, the investigations continued. The arrests spread across multiple states. Millions of dollars were recovered. Families finally learned what had happened to missing relatives connected to the scheme. Justice, at last. One evening, Emily returned home. For the first time in months, her apartment felt peaceful. She sat beside the window and watched the city lights. Then she remembered the moment everything began. A crowded airport. A black suitcase. One simple mistake. Except it hadn't been a mistake at all. Someone had chosen her because they believed she would do the right thing. And in the end, they had been right. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Every week, we bring you new mystery and life-changing stories that will keep you guessing until the very end. And remember, sometimes the smallest mistake can reveal the biggest truth of all. The end.